Hey everyone, it's Dave from Dave's Ohio Barbecue. If you told me as a child that I would actually enjoy a Brussels sprout recipe, I would have told you you're crazy. But today, I'm going to show you that recipe. Stick around. So Brussels sprouts, they get a bad rap. They kind of I don't know, smell funky, taste funky. They're like little cabbages. They're kind of, I don't know, if they're prepared incorrectly, they can be kind of gross. And I've had them at people's houses and relatives' houses where they've just taken Brussels sprouts and like steamed them in a basket and served them. And they're not great. You know, you have to choke them down at that point. So I went looking for a recipe to kind of elevate the Brussels sprout. Modified some stuff, and this is the recipe that we use every holiday season. Thanksgiving, Christmas, we make it all winter. It's just such a great winter recipe. So this is Brussels sprouts. They're roasted and they have bacon and pecans on them, but then they have this sort of maple balsamic vinegar glaze on the end that really takes them to the next level. So to start, what you're gonna need for this, I'm gonna tell you this recipe for 1 pound of Brussels sprouts. You can, you know, double, triple, quadruple it as you see fit going down the line here. So I'm gonna start with 1 pound of Brussels sprouts. I got these from the grocery store. You're gonna cut them in half, all right? So half them, put those aside for right now. First thing I wanna do is I wanna chop up about 1/4 cup of pecans. You know, nice, you know, small kind of morsel size. And you're gonna wanna toast those off. Now, today, I'm actually going to be cooking the Brussels sprouts on my pellet smoker outside. It's Thanksgiving, you know, we've got a lot of things going on in the oven and on the stove, and we were looking for a way to make more room. So on the pellet smoker, cooks just like an oven, but it adds like a little extra dimension to it. It adds that little bit of smoke that is really nice. I'm going to set my pellet smoker to a temperature of 425 degrees. That's going to be nice temperature for roasting the Brussels sprouts. I've got competition blend pellets in there. They give a nice neutral flavor, so those are good for vegetables and, you know, kind of lighter meats. If you don't have a pellet smoker, this recipe is just as good in the oven. Anywhere you have that you can maintain, you know, a nice even temperature, you can roast these Brussels sprouts. So I chop up 1/4 cup of pecans, and I'm actually going to toast them in the smoker as well. As the Brussels sprouts are going to be cooking a little bit later, I just put the pecans on like a piece of folded tin foil because I really didn't want to get another pan dirty, and I chucked it in the smoker. You got to be careful though. I only did it for about 5 minutes. I really didn't want them to burn because the pecans will burn easily, and you really got to keep an eye on them. You just want to have that toasty smell on them. So about 5 minutes tends to be enough. Maybe 6 if you're really looking to get a good toast on them. The second thing you need beforehand, before you start this recipe, is bacon. For the 1 pound of Brussels sprouts I'm going to be using, you're going to need 3 strips of bacon. I tossed in a 4th just because a little extra bacon never really hurt anyone. And I cooked those off ahead of time. I just used my griddle that I have in my kitchen to cook it off, whichever method you use for cooking bacon. But it's important that you save some of the bacon fat that cooks off of the bacon. You're going to need about 2 tablespoons of it for this recipe. So once the bacon is cooked, I put it aside to cool. We're gonna chop that up into small pieces, about the same size as the pecan pieces you had, little tiny, you know, tiny chunks of bacon. Now, to get the Brussels sprouts prepared for the smoker or the oven, whatever you're using, is you're gonna take 2 tablespoons of that bacon fat, dump it on there, and then I take, in addition, 1 tablespoon of just olive oil and put it on the Brussels sprouts and mix it up. Then you want to salt and pepper them. You can do this to taste. If you're looking for actual measurements, it's going to be a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then it's going to be about 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. I have a salt grinder and a pepper grinder, and I just kind of eyeball it because, you know, you don't really have to be too precise with this recipe. So once you have the salt and pepper in there, mix them up in the bowl with that bacon fat and that olive oil. Get the Brussels sprouts coated nice and evenly. Then take a baking sheet, and I like to cover it with a sheet of heavy duty foil, that way, you know, less cleanup. Spread the Brussels sprouts or the Brussels sprout halves on that tray in that pan in just a nice even layer. You don't want them piled up, you don't want to bunch them up too much, just a nice even layer on the pan. Put them on the smoker, and you're going to go for about 20 minutes on that. Now, different smokers might cook differently. When I was outside cooking this, it was probably like 30 degrees, so it took a little longer. It probably took me more like 25, 30 minutes. But basically, you're looking for those nice brown bits, those caramelized chunks on the Brussels sprouts. That is what makes them taste so good. Once you get to that, bring everything back inside. You're gonna put the Brussels sprouts back in a bowl, add the bacon and the pecans to the bowl, and you're gonna add about a little bit over a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar to it, and then about a half tablespoon, maybe a little bit more of maple syrup. You don't want to put too much on because you don't want it to be too sticky, too soggy. I usually keep it for 1 pound. I keep it at a tablespoon of maple syrup and then about a tablespoon and a half of balsamic vinegar. Toss it all around to get everything coated, put them in a serving dish, and you are good to go. This recipe will please the Brussels sprout lovers in your house, but it'll make new Brussels sprout fans out of people that didn't think they liked them. My wife swore she hated the things until she tried this, and she actually really enjoys this. There you have it, bacon pecan Brussels sprouts with a balsamic maple glaze on them. They're fantastic for the holidays. They're fantastic any time of year you can get Brussels sprouts. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure you follow me on social media. I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Dave's Ohio Barbecue. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel and press that little bell icon so that every time I make a new video, you get a notification. And if you have any comments or questions, leave them below. That's where I get a lot of ideas for my videos, and I will be really, really glad to answer any questions you have. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.